Thanks very much indeed. Good morning, everyone. And thank you very much to John, to Paddy and to Louise and all the members of Business in the Community for your incredible leadership in this area. It really is so important to see a business-led campaign in the area of mental health. I don't know about you, but I had a pretty rough journey to work this morning. Got off at Paddington, got on a train, got chucked off the train, got on another train. And as that train went along, it filled up more and more. And it made me think about three people who were almost certainly on that train at the same time as me. It made me think about a young woman who is on her way into work, who experiences panic attacks, who every time she saw the train filling up was getting more and more nervous and more anxious. Not just about her own sense of anxiety, but about the fact that if she stepped away from that train, she wouldn't be able to, she'd be late for work. It made me think about the young man who's coping with the emerging depression that's been brought on as a result of a combination of things that are going on in his life. He can't quite tell really whether it's about his work or his job, or whether it's about his life and stuff that's going on in the way that he's developing as a human being, as an adult in our society. And it made me think about the senior manager who was sitting down on the tube, absolutely buried deep in his smartphone, looking at his latest email, but actually thinking, this is an email I can answer. I've answered hundreds and thousands of emails like this before. I can't answer that email because I don't know what I'm supposed to say. These people, ladies and gentlemen, are not just on the tube carriage. They are in your offices, they are in your shops, they are in your workplaces every single day. And there are thousands of people who experience mental health problems who are in your workplaces every single day. These people are not weak people. They are incredibly strong people. They have to cope with challenges that people who don't have a mental health problem, the 3 and 4 of us, if you like, would find incredibly difficult to cope with. And then they walk in through your office doors with their game face on, coping with incredible pressure inside to be able to cope with the challenges that they're facing. These people are not people who are not delivering for your firms, your businesses. In many cases, they will be some of your star performers, but they will also be some of the most reliable people in your workforce. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the challenge that we are facing in our society today. The challenge to bring the issue of mental health out from underneath the carpet, out from the shadows, and put it center stage in terms of our conversation about business. And this issue has been previously ignored, but I'm really pleased to say that I don't think this is going to be ignored any longer. We believe at Mind that we're currently at a tipping point for well-being and mental health and well-being in the UK. And nowhere is this becoming more apparent than in the workplace, where the well-being of our country's workforce is increasingly a hot topic and increasingly a key priority for employers, for academics, for government, and for many others. We know that mental health is everyone's business. Mind has been at the forefront of the evolution in how we approach workplace well-being. Over the last 4 years, we've been supporting employers to promote good mental health at work in a variety of ways. Now is a really good opportunity for us to reflect on where we've come from, where we are now, and where we need to get to. So let's start with the obvious thing. First of all, we all have mental health, just as we all have physical health. It can move up and down a spectrum from good to poor for any number of reasons. However, considering how much time we spend at work, it's not surprising that workplace cultures and environments can affect our well-being. Contrary to popular myths, of course, as you've already heard, mental health problems are now extremely common. So 1 in 4 of us experience a mental health problem in any given year. Poor mental health can, of course, affect absolutely anyone. And the World Health Organization now predicts that by 2020, depression will be the second most common cause of ill health worldwide. And in your report, you'll see the impact that this has on business. We know now, of course, that mental health is the most common cause of sickness absence. And we know about the cost to the economy, 70 billion to the UK economy as a whole, 26 billion to employers in this country. The equivalent of just over £1,000 per employee. So if I was to say to you I could give you £1,000 for every member of staff you have, I suspect you'd bite my hand off. So why haven't we looked at this before? Why haven't we thought about it and acted more on it? Well, a few people have, of course. There are some people in this room who are pioneers in the issue of getting mental health in the workplace onto the agenda. But what we've seen is that although mental health problems are common, people haven't talked about them, often because they fear a negative response. This silence is self-perpetuating and it reinforces the stigma and the prejudice. And as you've heard, 9 out of 10 people who experience mental health problems say they face stigma and discrimination as a result. And people often tell us that it's the stigma that can often be more damaging to them than the symptoms of mental health problem that they're actually experiencing. We know that people find it hard to talk about it at work. And in recent surveys, we found that when people ring in sick, something like 90% of people don't give the real reason when it's a mental health related issue. So we know that there's a long way to go to combat the kind of everyday stigma that we saw in October in The Sun's sensational, damaging and misleading front page story, headlined 1,200 killed by mental patients, not true incidentally, or indeed the following month with the mental patient and psycho ward Halloween costumes in Tesco and Asda. Now, something really interesting happened when those headlines and those issues appeared. There was a public outcry over both events. There was an kind of rising up as one on Twitter from not just the mental health community, but a much wider community saying, this is wrong, it's not right, it shouldn't be happening. And something really interesting happened the day after that. Asda and Tesco very sensibly withdrew their products. The Sun published an apology. The next day on Twitter, you will see thousands of people using the hashtag mental patient to reclaim their own experiences of mental health. And what were they doing? Posting photographs of themselves, doing things like having a cup of coffee, taking their kids to school, going to work. This is the reality of what being a, quote, mental patient is in our country. And I suppose from a business point of view, it's sending an interesting sign about the importance of mental health, not just to you as an employer, but also in the context of where customers are increasingly at. And customers are increasingly thinking about mental health as something that a company needs to be thinking about in terms of the way that it communicates its values. So we can see that many people are ready to challenge those harmful and outdated portrayals. We can see that people are ready to be able to stand up and have a greater confidence in that voice and influence. But they also show how that stigma is still there and how far we've got to go. So how are we going to do this? Well, this is where partnership is so critical. 10 years ago, if I'd organised an event at the Barbican and invited a load of businesses to come and talk about this issue, I think I would have been here on my own. Maybe a couple of people. Carey might have come too, if I'd asked him really nicely. We now have a room full of people. We have a wider audience who want to play a part in this. We have emerging networks like the City Mental Health Alliance that you will hear more about later, who want to take business leadership in this field. And that is absolutely right. And that's why I'm so pleased that this alliance between business and the community and Mind is being launched today. Over the recent years, BITC and Mind have worked tirelessly in this space on each other's activities and events. In 2011, we held a business and government summit to discuss the importance of mental health in the workplace, and BITC helped us to recruit participants, some of whom are now members of that Work Well Mental Health Champions group that you saw earlier. Now it's time for us to work together to hit that tipping point. And the way in which we're going to do this is through the vehicle of our Time to Change campaign. Now, I'm hoping that most of you will have heard of Time to Change. It's England's biggest programme to challenge mental health stigma and discrimination, and we also have Time to Change in Wales and in Scotland, the See Me campaign. This campaign, which is delivered by Mind and our colleagues at Rethink Mental Illness, aims to break down stereotypes through social contact, which is bringing together people with experience of mental health problems with people who don't have experience of mental health problems. And we've already seen an improvement in public attitudes towards people with mental health problems since its launch in 2007. Hopefully you'll be familiar with our recent television advertising campaign and the Time to Talk Day that took place in February. But just in case you haven't seen any examples of that, here's a short film that typifies, I think, some of the stories that we're talking about.
I was brought up, stiff upper lip, pull yourself together, boys don't cry and all that kind of stuff, and then you're like a big rugby playing guy and you're falling apart, and you do feel incredibly alone, and so just having someone there is really important.
Friends that are really struggling are sort of almost easy to help because they're easy to spot. Actually, it's probably friends that you think aren't struggling that might be the ones that need your help the most sometimes.
Kind of people say opening up and talking about it is a brave thing to do, but for me, I didn't really have any choice. It was sort of self-preservation, and when we got together, we didn't talk about the illness, didn't talk about the bipolar and the bad times. We did normal, kind of regular things, just incredibly normal stuff, but it was kind of like a little anchor point in the chaos that was kind of going on. It was just a little pocket of normality, which was exactly what I needed at the time.
I hadn't played chess for 20 years. I could tell very quickly that it was something Tim was focusing on.
Matt cheated, to be honest, because whenever I played him online, the game would be over in about 20 moves, and it'd be all this amazing stuff and these openings and everything, and I'd be bewildered. And then when I started going down to visit him, we'd actually sit in the kitchen with a glass of wine and have a game face to face, and it was rubbish.
The reality was I was better than him, and unfortunately he finds that very hard to take.
Absolutely rubbish. Just kind of when I was just feeling down, I'd get the phone would go and it'd be a text from Matt, or a phone call, or send me a message or an email, or a stupid joke. And he's got an endless supply of really rubbish jokes, so that always made me smile. Because when you come out of the other side of something like this, where you sort of try to take your own life and you can't see beyond anything, it's just this blackness. It almost makes you want to embrace life and really live it each day. It was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. So I'm glad I'm still here.
Increasingly, we're seeing more and more people doing just that. And inside Time to Change, we also run the Time to Change Pledge. And this pledge recognises the importance of that first conversation about mental health as the most effective tool for driving long-lasting change. Over 160 organisations have already made a public commitment to tackle mental health stigma by signing the pledge, including Accenture, BAE Systems, British Gas, BT, Channel 4, Deloitte, E.ON, Ernst & Young, Legal & General, Lloyds Banking Group, PepsiCo, Shell, Telefonica, and the Bank of England. And I'd like to thank those organisations, many of whom are here today, for their early leadership. Those organisations know that open and supportive workplaces benefit everyone, employees, employers, and the bottom line. By looking after employees' mental well-being, they reap the benefits through increased staff morale, loyalty, productivity, and profit. But this enlightened approach so far is far from universal, as you've already heard. So where do we need to get to? Well, a stronger business voice on mental health is mission critical for UK PLC, because stigma around mental health in the workplace poses acute challenges for business sustainability. Other powerful forces are also shaping our workplace culture. The way we work is changing, and in-demand skills such as teamwork, collaboration, joint problem solving, flexible working, and staff development all require employees who are mentally healthy, resilient, motivated, and focused. And our kind of three-prong approach of looking after the mental health of your whole workforce, tackling the causes of poor mental health in the workplace, and providing support for line managers underpinned by senior leadership, we believe is a good formula to be able to provide positive mental health leadership in your business. And it's not that difficult, and it's not that expensive. So our goal is to mainstream good mental health and make it core business for all employers. And as the economy picks up, we need a healthy national workforce as a key building block for growth. And that's why we're so proud to be working with BITC to bring time to change to the heart of progressive thinking around business sustainability. Many top organisations are now talking about mental health and prioritising it. And we want to build on this through Time to Change to help many employers start their own conversation. And we're here for the long haul. We know that we're not going to give up until every UK workplace supports the mental health and well-being of their staff. So Mind and the Time to Change team, who are here in force, in fact, I might just ask them to all stand up and wave so that you know where they are if you want to collar them afterwards, the Mind team and the Time to Change team, work in partnership with organisations, engaging them on issues around mental health stigma, generating tools and resources to help all of us tackle it. They can provide advice, guidance and support on developing your action plan for your pledge signing, and you can learn from our community of other organisations who have already pledged. You know, I think this is the generation that is going to address mental health in the workplace. This is the task of this generation to be able to look and grasp this issue in a way that previous generations have not been able to. And I'm hugely looking forward to working with BITC, with many of you as businesses, to be able to achieve that ambition of eradicating stigma and discrimination and creating mentally healthy places, workplaces for all our society. Thanks very much indeed.